Well, good evening, good evening, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Weather Brains episode 980. 980, the weekly show for weather dweebs, geeks, nerds, dorks, and weenies. This is the pre-show, the magical time of the program where we do three things. We share boring personal stories, humorous anecdotes, and on occasion, say really outrageous things. All right, we are here for the 28th of October, 2024. And before you know it, we're going to be up to the 19th anniversary of this show, which is absolutely crazy. We started the show in January of '06. So we turned 18 this year. We turned 19 in January, and we're going to hit show 1000 soon in the spring. Goodness gracious. Who'd have thunk it? But we're still here. As we often say, we're not the world's best weather podcast by far, but we are the world's longest running weather podcast. So, kind of making the transition here. We're slowly morphing out of hurricane season into the cold season. And for a lot of folks, that means the beginning of the tornado season, which is the case here where I happen to be. Our tornado season runs from November through May. Some might argue that it never stops, but in terms of the greatest frequency, there's a clear season here, November 1st through the end of May. And we're actually in a pretty bad drought here where we are down here. For example, in Birmingham, we have not had enough rain to measure. In fact, we've not had any rain since the 28th of September. So this is the 30th consecutive day with 0.00 on the books, 0.00. And we could obviously use some, and we might get some late this week. But the last time we had a completely dry calendar month here was in 1924, 100 years ago. So it's been a minute since we've had a totally dry month here. But we'll see if we can maybe, if we get some rain Thursday evening, Thursday night before midnight, that means that we will not have that distinction of having a bunch of goose eggs on the rain board for this year. Jen, you okay?
I'm great. How are you? Can you hear me okay? No microphone
Yes, man.
tonight.
You change your sets almost every week. It's like, is this
Well,
virtual or is this an actual? You're actually
no,
changing rooms.
no, I'm on the road. So
Oh, oh.
yeah, I'm in New York right now. So we'll talk a little bit more on the show, but I'm in Syracuse, making my way east eventually to, this is my biggest trip ever to meet Thomas Cruzulis and spend a couple of days
Ooh.
with him. So I'm excited
He's
to.
in Vermont, right?
Mhm. Yeah. So I just
Wow.
decided to leave early and have been doing tornado history along the way. So I've already visited let's see, 5 libraries, 3 memorials, and 1 history center since Friday. So it's been great.
Wow. That's outstanding.
Yeah.
You're obviously driving, no air travel involved here.
No, just me in my car, and I plan it all out and stop at all the different libraries and look at microfilm and if they have history books and meet folks. And then if the town set up a memorial, I try to go there and take a photo and just pay my respects to those who passed away during the event. So it's what I did back in the summer, but then this one, the end of it is going to be being able to meet Tom. And of course, it's amazing to meet your hero. I mean, there is no tornado talk without Thomas Cruzulis, so I'm excited about it.
And I would assume there's still some fairly decent fall color, or is it all gone up
Yeah.
there?
It's as soon as I started getting further east, it started to fade, but it was really great northeastern Ohio. And then I made my way to Erie. And then yesterday I spent the day in Niagara Falls. And I had never been there before. And I didn't do any, I was just a tourist. So I took a day just for me. And I just absolutely loved it. It was just fantastic.
I have never been to Niagara Falls. Never.
You should. Oh, James, it's awesome. I walked around for 3 hours and went all to I didn't go to the Canada side, so I've got to go back so I can go to the Canada side. But did the Maid of the Mist boats and did the Cave of the Winds, and we were like, you could touch the falls. It was really amazing. And got a lot of great extra. It's just a beautiful park and just neat. The whole place is neat. So you've got to go.
Yeah, we need to do that. We spent some time in Cooperstown, which is, I guess, the closest I've been to Niagara Falls. It's, where the Baseball Hall of Fame is. Our son
Yeah.
played in a baseball tournament there. This was way back in 2010, and but it was a bunch of boys in baseball, and we went to the Fenway. That's what started our Red Sox journey. But I need to spend some time up there. I want to go to Maine. As often as I hang out in Boston, I've never been up to Maine,
Mm-mm,
and
me either.
and I've been to New Hampshire, but I've never been to Vermont. At some point, I need to do that. All right, so let's see. Henry, are you on the line with us? Can you hear us okay?
I can hear you fine listening about Niagara Falls and everything, so it's been great.
Oh yeah. Hi, Henry. Nice to
Okay.
meet you.
You're up in my neck of the woods, huh?
Yeah. Where are you at?
State College,
Oh,
right by Penn State.
yes, that's where I went to college.
Yeah.
So you're in my happy spot. So that's Happy Valley. It's
Were
awesome.
you there?
I graduated in 1995.
Okay. So you're a little
She's
after.
a kid. She's a kid.
I don't know. I'm not feeling too kiddish on this trip. I get pooped, but I'm energetic to get down the road and do all that I'm doing. So, but yeah, I loved it there. And this is when Dr. Forbes was still teaching.
Yeah. I love Dr. Forbes. He was best.
Yeah. When were you there?
Early 80s.
Mhm.
I was there the day
Am I in the wrong time zone?
during the great tornado outbreak of Pennsylvania in the May 31st, 1985 outbreak. I remember
Yes.
Dr. Forbes in the radar room just going crazy. And we blew the radar up because too many people got in there and the whole place heated up and we blew all the sockets out or blew the tubes out. So
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I was just in Albion and
Mhm.
did research for the 1985. I
Okay.
was in Trumbull County,
Mhm.
and I also went to Newton Falls. So those are some of the places early on Friday that I went, and Friday and Saturday for the 1985. We're going to be
We
revisiting that for Tornado Talk and writing more in-depth stuff
yeah,
on
you can still
those.
see the tornado that went north of State College through Moshannon
Yes.
Forest up there. You can still see the swath even when you drive up through there. You can still see the difference in the trees and everything. You know, so amazing.
Yeah.
Y'all got to save all this for the show now, Henry and
Yeah.
Jen. Stop that.
We're
Okay.
talking.
Yeah. Oops.
So
All right. We'll
circle
put it.
back to this now. Don't
All right,
forget.
But
we'll put
I
it
this
haven't.
is
on the
why
list.
people need to listen to the pre-show
That's
because you
right.
will get some nuggets on here that you don't get on the
Well,
produced audio
you
show.
started it too early, James Fan. I didn't expect it to be on so early. I like joined in and I'm like, wait a minute, the show already started. Am I in the wrong time zone?
Well, I don't know, James. You remember you and I did a show 10 years ago, I think with Ginger Z, I think it was. We did we
Wow.
we did a show. I remember that because I was like, oh, James Band's on. This is like the greatest thing ever. I think it
Oh,
I
was
can't believe
and
you've never been on this show, Henry Margacetti.
no, I haven't.
yeah,
Never
I
invited
that's
me.
terrible.
It
We
really
feel
is
bad.
terrible.
We feel
I
bad.
thought about it several thousand times that you should have
No,
already been on this show.
no, but James and I we did a show many, many, many years ago. Ginger Z I think it was Ginger Z was with us, and we were talking about, I think it was after Sandy or something like that. We were talking about something like that. I don't remember. It was a long time ago. So
Many moons ago.
many storms
Um,
ago. That's what,
yes, yes. Well, let's get this thing started, and we are now officially at the top of the hour. We welcome our television viewers. Uh, and Henry, just so you'll know, we're streaming live on YouTube. We're on local television, and most people listen to this, although a lot of people watch it live. But we are live here, so let's get the recorders going. We'll get this thing started. Our last Monday night of October. Goodness gracious, where did the year go? All right, track one, track two. Here we go in five, four, three, two, one.
You're listening to WeatherBrains.
They're kind of a big deal.
Weather Brains, episode number 980. 980. Getting so close to episode 1000. We'll celebrate next year in the spring. But hey, thanks a lot for joining us. If you're new here, this is the weekly show for weather people, weather dweebs, nerds, geeks, dorks, weenies. Not the best, but the longest running weather podcast in the universe. 18 years old, will be 19 years old in January. And some of the originals are still here. All right, so we got some folks out tonight. Know that Neil Jacobs is out. Rick Smith is out. But I do see Dr. McLean, Kim Cloco McLean from Norman. I don't say James is still here too. So Kim, how you doing? What's happening in Oklahoma? We won't talk football.
Yeah, we don't believe in that anymore here in Oklahoma. Football, what do you mean? But the good news is we might get some rain. It's looking pretty good for the middle of the week, which is really great. I just wish it would fall over the places that are on fire. Oklahoma has a lot of that going on, especially southwest Oklahoma near the Wichitas, or actually right in the middle of the Wichitas. It's been a really rough weekend of fire weather. Hoping for a little bit of reprieve.
And I think that's Rick is actually on duty tonight, helping out with fire weather issues. So it's been a busy week for him. But let's go up to James Adelot in Tulsa Town. Anything on fire up there, James?
No, just everybody in Oklahoma has shifted to, hey, it's basketball season now. So
Who did y'all play this weekend?
we don't talk, but no, basketball just started. So
Y'all play Alabama on January 4th. That's going to be interesting. So that'll be fun.
yeah, basketball. Yeah, I think so. We set a record high today too. So I'm trying to find out if I think it was 92 was the record, which is the all-time latest it's ever been, 92 degrees in the calendar year here. And it has been windy, as Kim said. Tulsa's peak gust today is 49 miles per hour.
Wow.
So sitting in front of the hairdryer.
Goodness.
Not good.
Goodness gracious. Blowtorch. Troy Kimmel, what are you, 100 down there in Austin? What are you doing these days?
No, it's much cooler than that.
99?
No, it's only 91 today at both Camp Mabry and out at Bergstrom. But I would tell you that the record, the 91 is an all-time record at Camp Mabry. That's our long-term climate site. It beat out an old record set on the state in 1917. So just really amazing. I cannot wait for the cold front, that one that's coming south now that gets through Oklahoma, just hangs up around here. It doesn't do anything around here at all. I think we're seeing a Canadian push about Tuesday or Wednesday of next week, maybe, that'll get down here. But at least there's a chance of rain. We've also had our fire problems down here as well. And QPF suggesting 1 to maybe a 1.25 inches of rain, mainly north of Austin. I'm looking for ways that Mother Nature can get around that, because Mother Nature will. So far, it's been very dry around here. I'm a little leery about what I'm seeing on the rain chances, even though I'm not arguing with them that much.
Well, J.B. Elliott taught us all years ago, you don't forecast rain in the middle of a drought. You just you wait for it to happen. But you clearly need a blue norther down there, which will happen at some point. But speaking of blue northers, we have a northerner on the line here. Jen is at an undisclosed location on a mission.
I am.
So
I'm on a
Jen,
mission.
tell us what you can tell us, and don't tell us what you can't tell us.
Okay. I will say I am in Syracuse, New York right now. It is 45 degrees. I am on my way east. I started my journey on Friday, and I have visited, Friday, Saturday, and today I visited 5 libraries, 3 memorials, and 1 history center. And yesterday I took the day off to be a tourist, and I was at Niagara Falls, which was awesome. And I had never been there before. So I've just been going on this journey. I left a little bit early, but my end goal is to meet Thomas Grzoulis, and that will be happening at the end of the week. And I should be able to spend a good 2 days with Tom and Doris. I'm like giddy because this is amazing to be able to meet your hero. There is no tornado talk without Thomas Grzoulis, and to be able to spend time with him and just I think we're going to go on a tour of his area and go through parts of Vermont, and it's just going to be amazing. So that's what I'm doing, and then I'll be back in Ohio sometime next week. And it's just I'm loving this opportunity to meet folks along the way and gather some more tornado history. And it's an opportunity too to visit some of the town memorials, so I can pay my respects to those who have passed away and the cities have honored their lives. So it's a big week for me to be able to do this.
Sounds like a road trip that you will not soon forget,
You
which
got
is
it.
outstanding. But Bill Murray, let's bring in our special guest. This is going to be a good show tonight. Let's crank her up. Let's go.
Yeah, James, I'm excited to be home for the first time in 5 weeks tonight. And
no waffle machine there.
I'm only here for a few hours, but I'll be heading back in the morning. But I had jury duty today and got out of it. Not that I wanted to get out of it, I just wanted to defer because I had to run my convention bureau meeting today and head back to Georgia tomorrow. But I lost 17 pounds in 5 weeks. So I'm 6 pounds from my goal weight, and I'm in suits that I haven't worn in 5 years.
On waffles. Tim.
Show title.
Yeah, on waffles. That's right. Yeah, well, they didn't have waffles till Sunday, so and I didn't eat any of them. So anyway, but
that may
I'm glad to be home temporarily at least. I had not seen Elle in 5 weeks, and I had to get her to drive over some comforters that we couldn't get from our supplier. So she had to rent a truck and drive them over yesterday. And when she drove up, it was like, you've wasted away. I don't know. So anyway, but I'm really excited about tonight's show. Our guest WeatherBrain is a veteran meteorologist recognized for his years at AccuWeather, where I met him. He became well known for his expertise in winter storms, severe weather forecasting, and his engaging approach to delivering weather insights. His career has spanned significant advancements in meteorological technology, built a loyal following among weather enthusiasts because of his detailed and accessible explanations of complex weather phenomena. During his time at AccuWeather, Henry was part of several key projects and experienced memorable weather events, along with very many amusing and unexpected moments that come along with forecasting. Henry Margacity, it's an honor and really kind of ridiculous that you haven't already been on the show. So welcome to WeatherBrains tonight.
Well, thank you for all having me today. I'm listening to your stories about how hot it is down there. I'm 53 degrees right now, and we had lots of frost again this morning. I think my garden pretty much got taken out with the frost this morning. We hit 32. And then the heat's coming in on Wednesday, late tomorrow, Wednesday and Thursday. So our fire danger is going through the roof on Wednesday and Thursday. We're all kind of like, because we're in a very, as Jen knows too, we're in a very wooded area with the forests up here, and we're all worried that we're gonna have some forest fires start to break out because it's so dry. We haven't had rain probably in 4 weeks now. And we're now into our dry season. Fall's always typically dry. The dew points go crashing down, and get these surges of heat coming in, and so everybody in the Mid-Atlantic states, New Jersey, back through West Virginia, up and down the Appalachian Spine, are all in a very, very bad short-term drought right now. So we're hoping this pattern's going to change a little bit so we get some rain up here, because we missed out. We didn't get much from Helene, and we didn't get much from the tropics this year.
Yeah, Birmingham, and James may have talked about this earlier, but our rainfall total for the month sitting at 0. And if we finish out the month at 0, and that could happen, it'll be only the second time in our recorded history. It happened exactly 100 years ago, and it could happen. Yesterday, Elle observed something amazing: a truck full of hay bales on I-285 in Atlanta that had caught on fire. So that's a first.
Yeah.
But it had not rained where I was in Georgia, because I was there for Helene and the really heavy rain.
Yeah.
I came in right after Helene went in, and it had not rained since until early Sunday morning. We got about probably 1/100th of an inch of rain, but Henry, take us back to how your interest in meteorology began. That's where we usually start the
Oh,
conversation. Tell us how you got interested in it because we usually have a fun story there.
I was my interest came probably with Hurricane Bell. We were down the shore.
1976.
Yeah, we were down the shore, and my father said, "There's a hurricane coming. We have to get out of here." And I said, "Do we really have to get out of here?
Yeah.
I want to stick
Why? Let's
around."
stay.
So yeah, we stayed. We stayed. It was interesting. It flooded, and it was pretty interesting down there. We were down Ocean City, which is just south of Atlantic City, and that got me interested. And then when I was in high school, I used to stand on the roof of my house and watch thunderstorms. Okay, and you know, my sister said to me, she said, "What are you going to do with your life?" He says, "You always stand up on the roof watching thunderstorms. Why don't you be a weatherman?" I said, "Is there a way to become a weatherman?" She said, "Yeah, go to Penn State, be a weatherman." So that's what I did. And then I met Dr. Forbes and Dr. Fritch and all those guys, and they just took me on. That was it. I was off to the races. And it's interesting. I'll tell you a story. This is for James Spann. I've in 45 years of forecasted weather, I've never seen one tornado.
Hmm.
One tornado.
What?
Never seen a tornado.
What?
Nope. Been close, but never seen one.
We
Hmm.
can
Have
fix
you
that for
Oh,
you.
have you,
wow.
James Mann?
That's
Oh, easy.
yes. I with my eyes.
Mhm.
My first one was the same event that was involved the Wichita Falls, Texas tornado in 1979.
Oh, yeah.
I saw a rain wrapped. It was a smaller, EF1, but it was off to the east and moving away. But that was the first one, and yeah, that was interesting. But normally I'm in a box in here, I don't get the chance to see them. But I have seen tornadoes with my eyes. James ate a lot. Please get Henry some help here. Fix this man up.
I tell you,
Yeah,
I've never seen. I'm
we
serious.
can
I've never
fix this up.
seen everything else, but never seen a tornado.
If
So,
you want to see
Wow.
roof damage, you can just put a camera close to Kim's house.
Yeah, Kim. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I was gonna say I've had 5 tornadoes come within 2 miles of my house in the
Uh-huh.
last 5 years. So, hey, the chances are pretty good. There, it'll be at 3 in the morning, and
Mhm.
it'll be a bird fart tornado, but it will exist. we can
Oh,
do that for you here in East Norman.
And boy, that's a show title.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
James is writing that one
I've been
down.
close to tornadoes. Now, what happens here is in the way it works up here in the mountains, we have the Allegheny front to the west of us, and typically thunderstorms coming off the Allegheny front will die off because they drop about 800 feet and they die out. So the storms have to come up the valley, and then when it goes over the ridge, next to where my house is, another ridge next to me. And when it goes over there, that's where they get the tornadoes. It's like right over the side of the ridge. There's been like 4 or 5 tornadoes in the last several years over there. So it's like I'll see the mesocyclone going by, nothing happens, and all of a sudden, you know, someone says the trees are all knocked down on their side of the mountain. So that,
So Henry, 1996 comes and Joel goes after our little weather business that we
oh
had,
yeah,
and we negotiate a deal, and I'm off to state college, and they introduce me to you.
yeah.
And they say Henry is going to transition the business, and y'all were the weather center was in a church
Hmm.
at that point.
Yep.
So you sent me a great picture today of when we went to the Horseshoe Curve because you
Yeah.
knew how much I love trains, and y'all took me to the Glitzen tunnels and
Mhm.
some cool stuff. What else do you remember about that fateful week back March of '96? Anything
So,
that was that even in your collective memory?
oh no, I have all the pictures here with the day you and I went down the Horseshoe Curve and saw the trains. You're in all your glory. You're like running around watching these big Conrail trains trying to go up that mountain, and you're just having a fun day. Roy Goshorn there was with us that day, and we had a wonderful day out there. It was kind of chilly that day, but we had a wonderful time out there doing the horse. Because this is back in the Conrail days, and we were trying to get you a ride on the Conrail train up the mountain because they allow people to go with them in the pusher engines up the mountain. And since Conrail was a client of ours at the time, and we were forecasting the weather for them for that mountain area, they would allow us to go on the pusher engines and push the trains up over the mountain. It was very interesting. to find out how they actually push those trains over the mountain up there. So,
Well,
we're trying to get that
I
for you.
still love Virtual Railfan because they have a camera there
Yeah.
at the Horseshoe Bend, the Horseshoe Curve, and watch the Pennsylvania come over twice a day. And I've
Oh, yeah.
never been over the Horseshoe Curve. I've been
Mhm.
up to I guess what's the town where Doctor um, oh Lord, it escapes me the name of the town that's right there. I've
Altoona?
ridden that far on the Pennsylvania, but I've never gone as the Horseshoe Curve. But we went to some shops that day. Where was the shop? Where were the shops where they worked on the locomotives and the
Oh,
trains?
yeah. We went to the Altoona shops.
Yeah, the Altoona shops. What a great road trip that
Yeah.
was.
That's where
But
they bring they bring engines in, all the railroad engines into the shops, because those shops were from way back in the 1920s and 30s, I guess it was. And they bring the engines in, they would rework the engines and back in those days, and the history of the Horseshoe Curve is amazing. That there was a lot of significance with it during World War II because they had to guard it because that was a place that at the time the Germans wanted to come in and blow up the Horseshoe Curve because that would take out all the Chicago to New York City uh, supplies going over to Europe. So it was an interesting day. But we don't want to talk about more trains. We want to talk about the weather.
It's train brains. We choose more train brains. And Bill, you put me up to that. So
Yeah.
there was a fear the Germans wanted to blow up the rail line.
Yeah, because the Horseshoe Curve is in the middle of nowhere. It's up in the mountains, and they could get access to it. So one of the things they had to do is to guard it because they were afraid that they were going to try to sabotage the line for supplies going from Chicago to New York City. Because then they got to New York City, they went to the harbor, and then they would go over on the boats over to the area. So it had during World War II in terms of supply. Now it's, 3 track expand tunnels because they do all the big cargo, the box trains, the big cargo trains now, the double stacks. So, it's actually still one of the biggest supply loads Midwest to West.
Yeah, I think Henry's internet is getting a little bit choppy. Henry, you kind of
Who's playing
frozen.
Minecraft in there?
Yeah, like Dr. Jacob said, is your mom playing Minecraft in the other room, Henry? Oops, we may have lost him
And
completely.
he's
Oh.
gone. Totally
Um,
gone.
Yeah,
Wow.
I tell you that Horseshoe Curve is an impressive place. Because that's such an amazing location where they were able to bring railroad traffic over the mountains with you know with fairly much ease. But it was a vulnerable place. So yeah, it was funny when we got to AccuWeather and to State College there in 1996. It hit 60 degrees, I remember, on that Wednesday, and everybody suddenly was in shorts, and I was walking around like in a jacket, and all the Penn State students, were walking around like it was, summertime or something. And I
Hey,
was
that's
like,
balmy, man.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, 50 is the shorts. Sometimes the 40s. We couldn't wait to get the shorts on.
Yeah, there was they stuck me in some, I was a hotel snob even back then. Troy Kimmel, didn't have the waffle maker at the little historic hotel downtown, Jen More. What was it called? And
Nittany Lion Inn or
I don't know.
Atherton, the
I
Atherton.
refused to stay in it, and got my own reservation out at the Scanicon, which was a new modern hotel. And I think I offended them because I didn't want to stay in what James would call a roach motel.
Yeah.
Well, that's at the Atherton then, because that's a nice hotel. Or the Nittany Lion Inn, amazing. But
I did
I've
get
never
to
stayed
go
there.
to the Nittany Lion Inn for lunch with Joel and met Joe Paterno, which was a
Are
real
you
highlight.
kidding me? That's
Yeah, we went for
awesome.
lunch there, and
Cool.
that was very fun. So I'm glad
Wow.
Henry's. We're stalling here to let Henry have time to get back. Um, and uh, so I did conduct myself very well because Alabama and Penn State had such a gracious rivalry in the 70s, with Bear Bryant and Coach Paterno. And it was a real honor to meet them. The Penn State and Alabama fans got along really, really well. There was a lot of respect there.
Hmm.
There's
When
a
they
lot
had
of the same type of traditions. I've been to 2 Alabama games, and I've commented to my best friend who I went with how similar, from the band to all the traditions to just the atmosphere, how similar the schools are. So I loved it. I loved going to the Alabama games.
Yeah, I had always heard, Coach Bryant, I think they had to stay in Harrisburg or somewhere when they went up to State College. And we did too when we went for the game back in 2007 or whenever it was. And, drove over that morning, and it was during all the terrible flooding that had happened. And we had a hard time getting there.
Hmm.
But I wanted to go at like 5 o'clock in the morning. Our people were like, "What is wrong with you?" Because I wanted to go and have pancakes at the famous place. Jen
Surprise.
probably knows what it was.
Yale
Does anybody
College,
remember who?
the Yale College Diner.
Yeah, and I
It's no
knew I would
longer
have.
there anymore. They got rid of it.
No,
Like,
it during COVID it went away.
yeah.
Oh my
And
gosh,
there were several
no!
places that are gone, but that was one of them.
But it's so beautiful when you drive up and see the stadium, in the valley, and the background and everything. Kim's nodding in assent here. Have you had an experience at State College too, Kim?
Oh, I have. Yep, I got to go visit during grad school, and it was beautiful. Got to hang out with a bunch of recent graduates, and get to see all the traditions and everything. It was really, really beautiful, and it's a very cool place. So yeah, just nodding right along. It's sort of a special experience to get there because it is fairly remote, right? Like it's a
Exactly.
Yeah.
huge college town that's just on its own in these beautiful hills. So it's a very unique kind of college experience. You contrast that against elsewhere in the Big Ten. You go to Minnesota, right there in Minneapolis, St. Paul area. You go to Wisconsin in Madison. Like you've got a bunch of these huge cities that the colleges are attached to. It's just a very, very different experience at Penn State.
Yeah, there's no question. And it was so fun for me, to be there. Both times that I went. And we were fortunate when we went back for the football game, because we got to tailgate, with the AccuWeather people, and we got to, John Neese took us around, and we went to the creamery, Jen, and had peachy paterno ice cream, and
The best.
got to go to the meteorology department on Saturday morning, and experience everything. But I loved Madison. Talking about college towns.
Yeah.
When NWA was there, just the variety of restaurants, and the diversity of people there. It really was fun. I loved coming to Texas, to Austin a few weeks ago, Troy, when I got to come out there. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, yeah. I think we were NWA together in Madison, and that really was a fun place. What was the name of the restaurant in downtown Madison? Was it Twister or Tornado or something? I forget what it was called, but it was right there, not that far. I walked over from the meeting, and it was a bar, and I forget exactly what it was called, but I remember having a good time in Madison.
You forgot, all right.
Yeah, I just can't remember the name of the place, but it had something to do with Twister or something.
I
Tornado.
had cheese curds, I bet, Troy Kimmel.
Yeah, yeah.
Did you restart the chipmunks, Henry?
No, this is the downslope. The winds have started, and they are because the eye is in the position where the wind's coming up from the southeast. So downslopes the mountain, and I can hear it's probably hitting 30 miles an hour outside, and hits our internet service back and forth. So,
Yeah. You're a little bit choppy, Henry. It might help if you turn off the camera. I'm not. We want to see your smiling face, but it might help your bandwidth issue a little bit. If and we certainly want to be able to hear you, no matter what, because you're kind of frozen. Flip the camera off. Yeah, I have great word choice, don't I, James?
Show title. Another show title. We have bird fart tornado and flip the camera off.
Yeah, at least I didn't say flip off the camera. Well, I guess we lost Henry again, so we'll continue to tell AccuWeather stories. I don't remember if I have any other good ones. We had a guy named Phil Panunzi-Allman was our salesperson, and when they bought our business, they insisted that they got him, and so we had to heavily incentivize him. John Olshew and I did to go and work for them, and he did not want to do this because he viewed AccuWeather to be just one level above the Nazis, because he had been battling them for 3 years in sales.
Yeah.
And he always said,
I was just going to tell you, Bill, Tornado Steakhouse.
Oh, Tornado Steakhouse. Yeah.
And that's right, in Madison, Wisconsin. So I just
cheese
got
curds on the menu.
Yep. Didn't mean to interrupt you, though.
No. And so, Philba had been battling AccuWeather for all these years. And he always said we were a, what did he say? We were like a PT Cruiser, and they were they were an aircraft carrier, and they, couldn't keep up with what we could do. And he ran circles, around them. And so it infuriated, them, and they wanted to buy us so badly. So he shows up, and we're having lunch at the Nittany Lion Inn.
Yeah.
And he looks at Joel Myers and he says, Joel, if you're so great, how come you don't have a weather channel? And I thought I was going to fall under the table. If you're so great, how come you don't have a weather channel? And now he does. I flipped on my television in Cornelia when we finally got our, Marriott entertainment system up and running, and it said the Weather Channel. And I flipped it on, and it was the AccuWeather Weather Channel. And I'm like,
really?
We're going to have to talk to the DirecTV provider because there's a little sleight of hand going on here. Henry must be out there working on the aerial still. See if
he's trying to hook up his 1200 baud modem, kick it up from 300 baud. No. Jenna said, Troy's got a discussion topic we can jump into here if we need to.
Yeah. What's that, Troy?
Well, I think there are two kind of big stories today. I don't know if you all saw the email that I sent you just before showtime tonight, but I think this is a big story. And it's not the big one. I'm going to get to that in a second. But here today, I just got an email a little while ago. Jason Samnow from Capital Weather Gang in Washington is leaving the Washington Post. Apparently today was his last day. I got to tell you, I've talked to Jason so many times. He's done such an amazing job at the Washington Post, and what they've done, put that together. And a lot of that is Jason. I mean, I give credit to all the rest of the people up there, but Jason's been sort of the guiding light with that. And I know that I'm going to miss him. But you know what? With Jason, I really believe that if you think what he's done is so great now at the Washington Post, he'll even do even better with the next chapter. So whatever that happens to be, we wish from WeatherBrains, we wish Jason Samnow the best, and be excited to hear about what's in the future. Other is a big story, and I can't say who all I've talked to, but I think this is a huge story, and so far it has not caught hold in the media, and I wonder if there's a reason for that in the timing of this late last week. But as I understand it, and have received this word from several folks, apparently last Thursday or Friday, and we've talked about this before, the FAA apparently issued a memo, apparently copies to the Weather Service and other folks, that our center weather units, which are staffed by, 3 or 4 meteorologists per office. You got a meteorologist in charge and a couple of other. They work with the FAA centers, Houston Center, Dallas, the Fort Worth Center, rather, Memphis Center, Jacksonville Center, Miami Center. And those are, it's not exactly a public office. They work directly in meteorological support for air traffic controllers who do an amazing job. The FAA air traffic controllers do an amazing job, but they're not meteorologists. But it's one of the biggest considerations they have. The bottom line is the FAA has informed the Weather Service now by memo that that contract will be ended on April 1st of 2025, next year. And that's all they say. And I'll tell you that there are a lot of people that I'm hearing about that are out those CWSUs that work so hard that apparently trying to get out and get back into the field structure of the Weather Service before all this happens. And I do not know what the FAA's plans are. I do know that most people are aware of flight service stations that the FAA has. James, I know you have that up in Tulsa. You would know that, being a pilot and so forth. The flight service stations are run by Leidos, I think is the name of the company. It's a contract the FAA has. I will tell you that if you go online tonight and you search for FAA flight service station and do that on your web browser, and then come up on this page and it talks about flight service, in a document updated August 29th of this year, they've inserted a paragraph in there that says that the CWSUs are now under the control of flight service, which is really kind of bizarre. They've been under contract with the National Weather Service. And what I'm wondering is the FAA about to, just off the top of my head, are they fixing to contract this out to other folks and not the Weather Service folks, and bringing in someone from Leidos or these other companies to do that? I just think that's a shame. I will tell you, I hear there's a tremendous amount of infighting that's going up as high as the White House tonight, and the Secretary of Transportation. People are screaming bloody murder from different agencies. I think the Weather Service deserves to be proud of the men and women that have served in those center weather units. Not saying it's over with yet, but I'm just saying the memo has been issued. The FAA said they want to end the contract effective April 1 of 2025, next spring. And at that point, apparently, NWS will no longer be responsible for staffing CWSUs in the centers. Comes from Southern Flight 242, Bill Murray. Comes from that flight in April of '78 in James, up in northwest parts of Georgia. Is that plane went from
77, right?
Yeah,
77.
And what happened in that case, as I understand it, is that FAA controllers at Atlanta Center who were guiding that plane toward Atlanta, apparently I may have this wrong, but I'm pretty sure these were still black and white radars in the FAA center units. And apparently they steered a plane into a hail core, which had caused the radar to rebound so badly that it showed a minimum of precipitation. And they directed it into the hail core, and that's no fault. I mean, that was 78. The FAA people did what they could, but the NTSB and other folks wanted to bring the Weather Service in, create the CWSU units. I think they did a good job. I think the Weather Service has done an amazing job, and I believe it's a disservice to the people of the United States that we stop that now. I'll tell you that. I think the FAA better look carefully at this, because I think it's a bad move.
Do you think it's a cost-cutting measure, Troy?
I have a feeling it is. That's my gut feeling, because I tell you, I think if they hired people in those positions, in a contract position to run the CWSUs, I think that they'd be paying them less money than what Weather Service people are making, and the Weather Service accordingly would charge as part of the contract. So I probably will go that way. All this stuff, by the way, is not public yet. They haven't said anything, but I've talked to people who have read the memo, and FAA people, NWS people, and other folks have seen it. And there are a lot of angry folks high up in government about this. And I don't think, James, it'll be just that. I think it'll be AOPA, the Pilots Association, other people that will be very angry about this as well, if the FAA continues this.
That's a big lobby.
Yeah, James A., what else you have to add to that?
It's a powerful lobby, and when word gets out, um,
Yep.
there will be a lot of disappointed people.
Yeah. And I went on Twitter with this, I guess probably, and I'll wrap it up because Henry's back with us. But I went on Twitter with it on Thursday and Friday, and it's gotten quite a bit of coverage. I did an interview with CBS up in Youngstown, Ohio, earlier today. They're preparing a story. They want to do a little background. They can't get anyone to confirm it, but it's there, and it's at least been proposed, and the memo has been written.
Kim, you got a quick comment?
Yeah, it's so interesting. This is something internally. There's been a lot of concern about FAA and the pressure being put on the CWSUs and potentially losing them. I know when I joined the Weather Service, this was a very big concern in the aviation community, and it motivated a study I'm doing now. So I'm actually really interested to see what this is going to mean for the study. I'm mapping literally the value chain of the aviation forecast system, which includes everything from the forecast generators in in the Weather Service, but also in private industry,
Yeah.
to CWSUs and FAA that work with them, and other user groups. So if this is coming down the pipe, I'm supposed to be doing those interviews with the CWSUs in a couple weeks. This is going to be high drama, and we already knew a couple of weeks ago, the FAA had sent out a memo expressing that they were cutting staffing from 4
Yes.
to 3. So this is a lot of change really quickly. I've, sometimes these things in bureaucracy are about who's in control.
Yeah.
And I don't know if this is just FAA being upset that they were paying for something that Weather Service controlled. That's always sort of an awkward arrangement.
Well, one thing that I've heard, Kim, in the last little while, and I can't disclose my source here, but I was talked to someone in the last hour or so that told me that the kickback is very, very pronounced at highest levels of government. And I will quote to you what they told me is that they would not be a bit surprised to the FAA walk this back now.
Yeah, well, I sometimes think about the president's budget and the games that get played each year. That you zero out the thing that's really popular to get sometimes a budget plus up too. So this is completely speculative on my part, but it could also be FAA signaling to the powers that be, we need more support for this.
Right.
And this is sometimes the best way to get that kind of attention.
Yeah.
I don't know all of the dynamics. I'm not going to pretend to know all the dynamics. I know, at least from FAA folks I've talked to, they have the same kind of bureaucratic differences between like sort of different levels of the organization. And so the FAA people who work with CWSUs know and love and appreciate how important they are. And so there's just other levels that aren't just connected that are dealing with the budget pieces. I'll be really interested to see how this shakes out. And I'm glad that you raised it. It's something that's such a vital part of our aviation weather infrastructure that no one really knows about. But literally, you have a forecaster who sits with the air traffic controllers and holds their hands through things. And I mean, it is, when you're talking about being eye to eye with your partner, aviation created that through, and the CWSUs are the exemplar of that. So it's an amazing model. I hope that we're able to keep it, whatever has to happen in the bureaucratic arrangements to support it. Thanks for making us aware of that. That is a really interesting emerging story.
I'm really interested to see what the WSEO, the Weather Service Employees Organization, has to say about this. And I haven't heard a peep out of those folks. But who knows? Henry's online, and he was talking about the AccuWeather stuff. It may be that FAA wants to go to a private contractor on that. They feel like it's more economical. But I think the Weather Service has done such an amazing job. I think it'd be a shame to leave them at this point. But you never can tell.
Well, I'll bring in some insights to you. My son works for Eastern Airlines.
Yeah.
Remember the old Eastern Airlines?
Mm-hmm.
And they're staffing up meteorologists, okay? Because he was explaining to me that these airplanes now are so sophisticated and they got so much information in them, and they feed that information right to the airplane, and they can deviate off their flight routes just using air traffic control, saying we know we're going toward a thunderstorm, we want to go around it.
Right.
And, so you got to start saying to yourself, if the airlines like United, American, they're staffing up on meteorologists, what do you need these guys for to do it when they got their own crew doing it and
Yep.
also
Well,
putting
this
that
is
into
the
the
interesting
computers in their
thing.
plane? What?
Pilots can do some rerouting on their own, but
Mhm.
they're subject to the constraints that are set and negotiated by the system, which includes FAA. They sort of determine, here are the places you can fly planes through today,
Yeah.
and then it's the airlines that have to figure out the flow through that. So that's so interesting, that airlines are thinking of things that way, and that they're staffing up.
Hmm.
It's a complex system, but it is all interrelated,
Well,
and they do depend on one another.
it surprises me now. Like I took a flight, I fly quite often, and we flew into Pittsburgh in dense fog. I mean, visibility was basically almost zero.
Yeah.
And I asked the pilot, because he was standing at the curb with me. I said, "How did you guys do that?" He said, "I just let the airplane do it. I didn't fly it. The airplane
Yeah.
flew itself down and landed in the fog." I'm
Yep.
like,
Wow.
well, okay. So why do you need a meteorologist for anymore? If you know, if you're gonna fly right into, worse than IFR conditions, in the old days, no one would fly in that dense fog, right?
Yeah.
But
Well, I guess the CWSUs are more en route weather, the center,
right, right,
and
right.
that sort of thing. But and I've done the same thing, Henry. A few years back, most
Mhm.
amazing time for me was the same situation you're talking about, going into SeaTac one day and coming on southbound into that approach, and I'm sitting there going, I'm pretty sure the ground's pretty close.
Mhm.
And and all of a sudden, the first thing you really see are the lines down the side of the runway from the passenger part of the aircraft. It's truly amazing. And Henry, I asked the pilot the same question that day, and he says, found the middle of the runway, and it knew exactly where to go.
Yeah. So these planes are getting pretty sophisticated anymore, you
Yep.
know what I mean? So it's like, I was listening to you talking about getting rid of the CWSU, and I was wondering if they're all thinking that these airlines are going to do their own routing with the air traffic controllers. They're going to figure out,
Right.
because they all got to, you also got to understand they got fuel. They got to start thinking about the fuel prices are going up, and they got to save on that. They got the CO2 stuff they got to worry about. They got a lot of stuff to worry about, and these airplanes are getting more efficient, you know, and so, they're thinking through the process when I fly an airplane from point A to point B, my fuel consumption, everything else. And I don't always go into, if you ever gone through O'Hare, you sit in the Hare, you basically drive around O'Hare Airport for about 2 days before you take off. It's like,
Yeah, it's
it's
true.
like every time I spend more time at O'Hare running around the runway than I do actually flying. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. I think the whole thing's an interesting, uh, what's coming up here with the with aviation forecasting nowadays and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Kim, you
Thanks for
want to
listening.
add anything you just commented in the chat there?
I just think it's going to be so interesting to unpack some of this for the study this year. So that's all I'll say. So many of these things are, there's someone who's responsible on paper, but so many things really are shopped among all these organizations, and there's sort of a table of negotiation that goes on that can easily go underappreciated, and it'll just be really interesting to see how this all bears out, because I do think it's very valuable to have that kind of voice right there with FAA doing both the en route planning, but also coordinating with other parts of the Weather Service on things like convective sigmets, and so on. There's just a lot of pieces that they are sort of a boundary spanner for, even if they're not the ones who are on the hook technically for issuing a product or making a particular call. They are in the room with some more local knowledge, and I really hope that as we go to our AI future, that's not overlooked.
Wow, some great conversation. Thank you, Troy, for bringing those topics up. Henry, go back and talk to us about AccuWeather for a minute. You spent a
Yeah.
long time there, and you got to have some funny stories, some good stories. We don't want you to violate any NDAs or anything, but
I know.
you
Well,
know, Tell us some good stories. I used to love watching you guys fight in the forecast center. I mean, it looked like the Battle of the Gladiators, on Monday morning. I was like,
Yeah, I
wow,
know.
this is competitive.
If you go back and think about the days when we were at the church, we used to call it the church because it actually was a church on College Avenue down right
Right.
from State University. I got a
I
job.
think you and I were like in a locker room downstairs or
Yeah.
something. It still smelled like gym socks.
Oh, wow.
It was the craziest. And I was there. I
Good
was at
time.
AccuWeather for 34 years, and now I run Weather Madness and Weather Decision Solutions are my two companies now that I run, and which I'm having a lot of fun with. I didn't think at my age I would be getting back into the business and being successful once again doing the weather stuff, and I really enjoy it. But yeah, I got a job at AccuWeather by stalking the Joel's wife. That's how I got a job. I was a college kid.
Kim has a look there, Henry.
Not not stalking in a weird way, but just because she would show up for work every once in a while, and I was a college student at Penn State, and I was in a weather up at the weather tower up there, and I wanted to get a job at AccuWeather because I needed the money, and I needed to make money to pay tuition costs because back then tuition was like $170 whatever it was
Semester hour, yeah.
semester hour, what it was back in those days. We were tri-semesters back then. So I would sit out in front of AccuWeather on the steps waiting for Joel's wife to show up. And then one day she shows up. She comes up in a Mercedes Benz, parks her car, and she gets out. And I knew it was her. And I ran up to her and I said, "Mrs. Myers, I'm Henry Margacetti, and I want to work for you at AccuWeather." And she looked at me and she said, "You've been sitting on that step very long?" I said, "For 3 days." And she said, "Well, come on in. Let me talk to you." And I got a job that day. You know.
There
So,
you go, Henry. That persistence paid off.
oh yeah, that's a lot of funny. Elliot Abrams was great to work with, and if the funny times were, you know, uh, Joel was just he was a crazy professor. That's what I would say. He loved his meteorologist, and when there's a big storm coming, he would come up from the office. He would look at all these Difax maps up there, and he would point out all this stuff to us, and he would, then him and Joe Starr would get in a big fight, and Elliot Abrams and Joe Sobel and him would get in a big fight about something because they didn't agree, and you know, it was, it was crazy times, you know what I mean? So, but it was fun because you learned to how to forecast the weather, and you learned, we had a model and you really learned how to look at vorticity and how to look at patterns and pattern recognition. And, you didn't have what you have today in terms of models. And I know James Benson, they're going to think of himself going, "Oh my gosh, the LFM model. I remember that model. It was the best model ever."
Yeah, buddy.
It was.
Limited fine mesh, LFM, baby. Woo.
So yeah, you learned how to do it. And my funniest story was I was a technician and I was calling in a snow alert for Bethlehem Steel Company down in Philadelphia. And I got on the phone with a guy. I said, and the guy starts yelling at me every curse word. "You're kidding me. It's clear skies outside. There's no storm, whatever." And I turn, "Oh, this guy doesn't believe your forecast." He goes, "Give me that phone. Let me tell you what's going to happen." He gets on. He goes, "Let me tell you something. There's thunderstorms breaking out all over the place around North Carolina. They're coming up there. It's going to snow hard. It's going to snow at a rate of 1 to 3 inches an hour. Guaranteed at least 4 inches of snow. Thank you very much. Good night."
Sounded just like him.
And they got it. They got it.
You saw the entire industry change over those years, Henry. I'm afraid we may have lost you again. No, there you're kind of freezing and unfreezing a little bit there. Talk about the amazing pace of change over that 30 plus years.
I think, well, I think, I think the old timer forecast where we had to forecast the weather. You had to analyze weather maps. You had to really look at things carefully. I mean, you had to, plot weather maps. You had to plot the upper airs. You had to do all that stuff. In those days, you had to marry the weather. every day you had to go in the weather and be in tune with the weather pattern and keep an eye on things. You didn't have weather radar like we have today. We had those old little Difax things that are like 5 inches by 5 inches size, and you would see this big black dot right there, and that would say a thunderstorm's there. And but we did.
Uh-oh. Yeah, it's like
And
when we
he's
get to the
gone.
best part always. It's that's when he gets that, and there we go.
And he's gone. Done.
Weren't we just making fun of poor bandwidth with Difax?
Yeah.
I guess it's kind of a life example of it, James.
But I really believe what Henry says is true. I mean, I even discuss it with classes about, the days when forecasters would walk in, and we still have some that'll do this, that have the cigar box full of the red and blue and green pencils and everything else, that do the hand analysis and really do work hard in doing that. And I know that there's still a lot of folks out there that do that in the Weather Service and in other areas as well. But I mean, just think about that change. As I know, computers have really helped us come a long way, but I wonder sometimes in analysis whether they've been that helpful, or if they caused us to lose a little bit of our situational awareness. I don't know.
Well, let me ask you this: you've been around pre 88D days, but
Yeah.
do you remember looking at severe weather days saying, man, I just wish I had more data? So you looked
Yeah.
at the data you had even more closely, and now
Right.
there's just a torrent of data, and it's a load shed problem.
Yeah.
To do this real time. You can't look at every radar product, every tilt. You
Right.
gotta, especially if you're communicating at the same time.
Yep. But I mean, the changes Henry's talking about, I mean, it's just, I don't know how to really sum it up. They're huge. I mean, I remember in class when you would do hand analysis, and before you could finish with the hand analysis, the next hour of obs were out.
Yeah.
And things like that when you look at it. And nowadays, everyone's been to the SPC site where they have the PDF maps now, where the surface obs are already plotted, and you can kind of take off and go from there. But is it the same amount of? Do we still have the same amount of situational awareness that we had when you did hand analysis and hand plotting and stuff like that?
It's a great question.
Yeah.
Again, I don't think you're married to the data as deeply as you were.
Yeah.
But I would rather have more data, I guess,
Yeah.
if I'm
I got
looking
you.
at the horns of that dilemma.
Yeah. Well, look at also another thing too is consider those surface maps. I mean, in the 80s when I was in the classroom, you had what? Probably a quarter, if not less than that, of number of surface observation points, and everything was pretty much everything was manual in those days. All those observations were manually taken, and you had good comments. Sometime I think there's still a web page out there that talks about some of the funniest comments that back in that day the surface airway observations had in them, the essays. And things like that, some of the great comments that were manually made by observers that are just not there anymore. But as you point out, James and Bill, we have what? We have probably 50 to 60 to 70% more AWASs and things like that are out there. So our surface coverage is a lot more than it used to be. So.
And we get computer models every time we turn around.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
What was the LFM grid spacing? 190 kilometers, something like that?
Yeah. Yeah.
I can remember standing in the teletype room at the Weather Service office because that was the place you wanted to be.
Yep.
You might pull an AFOS graphic or something, but you were scared to death you'd bring the system down. And boy, they would run you out on a rail, James Spann, if you brought it down. That was for sure.
Those things were heaters for those offices.
Yeah.
Y'all talk for a minute, and I'll
Bill,
see if I can send the call-in number to Henry.
Okay.
And that might work.
We actually, I actually drove down to the Weather Service office to get a black and white print of a satellite image to use on television. This was back in the late 70s. and the network fed down their feed this old black and white loop that just looked horrible. But if you wanted a really current image, you'd have to drive down there and get the print and bring it back and shoot it on camera. It was a different world back in those days. And then we got the what was the first graphic system? Goodness, Live Line, color graphics. Terry Kelly, and we had an Apple IIe. We had a Kremimco computer and an Apple IIe, and you could get the satellite data with the dial-up stuff, and those were some exciting times.
There's your radar picture, James, from Hurricane Frederick back in,
wow,
put it on the wall here, 1979.
Yeah,
wow.
a couple of my treasures were some slides from that Mobile radar, that WSR.
Yep. I remember. You remember Hurricane Allen that came up on South Texas?
Yeah,
South Texas. I remember. I spent 2 hours trying to dial in so we could get the radar image.
Yep.
You would dial into these different radar sites, and it was always busy because everybody was trying to dial in at the same time. And man, we got through, and it was just like we had won the World Series. That image slowly painted in, and it was really stunning. It was an incredible radar image out of Brownsville. So,
well, you remember?
I don't think we
Hurricane
appreciate
Allen,
what we have.
Yeah, Hurricane Allen actually produced a tornado in Austin, Jen, that is still, I know you've written about a little bit in back in 1980 that produced, Hurricane Allen produced in one of the rain bands, one of the worst urban related tornadoes that's ever occurred. And that was in Austin, Texas. Mm-hmm. Came up across the airport here in town, the old airport at the time, into parts of East Central Austin. A number of injuries occurred with it. We didn't have any deaths, but it was a Sunday afternoon tornado. And it was interesting because, James, the military had evacuated many of the aircraft from the military stations at Corpus Christi. Guess where they decided to put them? On the north side of the Austin airport. Helicopters and everything else, and a number of military assets were actually destroyed here in Austin by that tornado.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow. Goodness.
Back again.
So I think Henry's back.
Yep.
It's something. Xfinity's having all kinds of outages along the eastern seaboard right now for some reason. No, I'm serious. Something's going on that they're having widespread outages.
Yeah,
that's why my internet keeps popping off and on.
Yeah.
When they hear that they're blocking Henry Market City, they're gonna get crews on it right away. So
you can imagine that. Anyway.
So Henry, talk about AccuWeather for another minute. You kind of a little bit, and then I want to talk about your current businesses and ventures that you're in. But Joel really did do some amazing things along the way and became a giant corporation and began to actually influence policy and things. So talk about that for a minute.
Yeah, I mean, he had a lot of good insights into the weather and the business skills and professor skills, and he did a good job. I mean, he went from one customer that was given to him at Penn State. Dean Hostler, I think, gave him to him, the oil company, I believe it was, that he forecast for, and then built it into a big company, and he did a good job, I think. I mean, AccuWeather still functioning. It's just down the street from me, and they're still going strong. Still got a lot of good friends over there. Most of my friends have retired. Elliot's retired now, and I think Joe Sobel's retired. So a lot of the people who were there for many, many years have retired. And I see Elliot once in a while. I see Joe Bastardi once in a while. So yeah. But now on to new adventures.
Yeah. So talk about some of the cool stuff you're doing.
So I started after I retired out of AccuWeather. I started. Well, what happened was people started asking me, "Where were you and what are you doing?" And I said, "Well, I'm just going to kind of enjoy retirement, kind of do some things here and there." And they said, "Well, why don't you start your own website and start, going back and blogging and all that kind of stuff?" I said, "All right, I'll do that." And I started Weather Madness. And that's gained popularity. It's a subscription site, so I keep everything within the site itself, and it continues to grow. And then I did some offshoots. Now we have weather scopes out there, which is one of my interns runs, and we have Weather Decision Solutions, which is more geared toward snow removal customers and companies that need specific forecasts, tailored forecasts. Okay, so that's where I am today, and I'm enjoying it. Work out of my home, enjoy all that stuff, and business continues to grow, and we're doing really well. So it's fun to do. And one thing's interesting. I was reading the other day. I guess uh, this whole thing about the social media issues that were going on after Helene and Milton. Um, and one thing that we do at Weather Madness is that we keep all our social media stuff within the website so that we don't go out on Twitter much or Facebook to keep out of the fray of things that are going on out there nowadays. So that's what we've been doing.
Yeah, so you've been involved with a lot of national media and things like that too.
Yeah.
Talk about Hurricane Sandy for a minute, Henry.
Sandy. Sandy was that was an interesting storm because we had, when Sandy was developing, um, there was two solutions. I think it was the European that was bringing in New Jersey, GFS at the time was taking it out to sea, and some people thought it was going. Originally, I thought it was going out to sea. Then I kind of came on board with the European model, bringing it back into New Jersey, and that was a heck of a storm. I mean, I remember that storm quite vividly. Even back here in the mountains, we got heavy rain and high winds and everything. And I think the big controversy was that prior to making landfall, they downgraded it to an extratropical storm, which they later came back and said, well, we should never have done that. We should have kept it as a hurricane, But you can argue which is which nowadays on Sandy.
Mhm.
But Sandy was quite, I mean, it was a very rare storm, and I don't know if we'll ever see one like that again.
Yeah, let's talk about this hurricane season we're in the middle of right now, Henry.
This
What we've
one,
been through.
this is, Milton and Helene, I think, have brought a a situation where we have to go back and start evaluating how we categorize hurricanes. Okay. Because Helena specifically, um, the flooding was without a doubt the most catastrophic flooding we've seen in a long time up there in the mountains. Okay. But if you look at Helene itself coming into Florida, one could argue it was a category 2 coming in, not a category 4, because there really wasn't any winds that you could find that meet the criteria. Okay. I think 106 mile per hour was the highest I saw on that Doppler radar at the airport. And so, when you look at a storm like that, one can say that the impacts from flooding were probably at a category 4, category 5 type of flooding. I mean, really, it was worst case scenario for that part of the area. Um, but for Florida, really, what was the category, And I think we have to go back. I think we really have learned some lessons from this hurricane season that we really need to go back and start really looking at what are hurricanes, what are the impacts, and how we're going to start categorizing things so the messaging goes out. Because, the messaging, I don't know if the messaging for Western Carolinas initially was all that good myself. I don't know. Okay. I remember people saying heavy rains were coming in, and when the front stalled, and you had all the pre-heavy rain, and then Helene's rains came up. I don't know if anybody really anticipated it going to be that bad, that fast. Okay. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I was thinking about this tonight. I wanted to get James Spann's take on that and what he thinks about looking at hurricanes in a different view nowadays and starting to get rid of the wind category and start looking at the hurricane itself as a whole in terms of its impacts and how we really categorize hurricanes.
Well, and this is a Kim question, and every time this comes up, the question is, do you do away with a scale? And we all know, all that matters is impact. That's all that matters.
Right.
That's it.
Mhm.
And if the old Saffir-Simpson scale is harming that to the point where people are losing their life, I think at some point you have to look at changing things around. How do we message it? And obviously, a better job could have been done for our friends in the Southern Appalachians, I think. But it's a social science question, and that's the beautiful thing that we didn't have, for so long, Henry, is integrating social science into physical science. That's all we know is numbers and maps and forecasting, and we're trying to get people to change their behavior.
Yeah.
And I don't know anything about that. I don't know anything about that. I was not taught that. I don't understand it. And that's why these brilliant people like Kim can help us be better in the messaging part of this whole thing. And that's something, we didn't have for a long, 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 long time. And
Yeah.
for me, what made me realize it was the April 27th outbreak, where on my watch in one day, 252 people died from tornadoes.
I remember
When the
that.
warnings were so good. In
Mhm.
some cases, you had a lead time of 30, 35, 40 minutes.
Mhm.
Every tornado, all 62 tornadoes one day. And something was not right. The physical science could not have been better, but we didn't understand the behavioral science. And so that's why every time we hear a question like you're asking, it's a Kim question.
I just made a comment in chat. All of these always being Kim questions is why Kim always comes with a glass of wine in these meetings. One of the things I'll say is that they're combined physical social science questions, and I think one of the things that I find most interesting about the Helene case is some of the physical science challenges. We look back and think, gosh, there's so much that could have been done in the messaging, but
Mhm.
part of it is really how much specificity did we have in the forecast, and especially our ability to translate that to impacts. And that
Mhm.
is where it's a combined meteorology and physical science with our partners. And do we have all the collaborative processes worked out to get to a table to figure out, okay, if we've already had this rainfall event that happened before Helene, and we're going to combine on top of it, like we're going to have this additional rainfall, and here's what the models are suggesting, but we also know that this is outside of the bounds of so far outside the bounds of normal, we don't even know if the assumptions behind these models will hold, especially the hydro models. Water could find a new way down these hillsides than it ever has. That's something where we need a lot of conversation and co-imagining how things could fall, and we sort of leave it to, okay, well, we've created a forecast, the message lies with somebody else, and now they're going to take it and run with it and make their decisions. And in this case, it really, I mean, I see no way out of this other than everyone having gotten around a table and sort of almost treating it like a war room, and putting everyone's knowledge together and really thinking, how can this manifest? And do we have the capacity to do war rooms like that, at this scale everywhere for all the time, for any of these events that could go on? If we don't, could we make them? I'm just the social scientist here at the table, but I see this as much a physical science problem as just crafting a message. I think that it's both, and that they were, it's a challenge of co-determining them.
Yeah.
So, like I said, this is why I drink. I appreciate all your faith in me. I would love
And
to
that's
say
a
that I have that
great,
much
great
faith.
show title. This is why I
This
drink.
is
That's
why I
another
drink.
possibility.
I wish I could say that I have silver bullets, and there's this view of the social sciences, I think sometimes, that, oh, you guys have all this latent knowledge on a shelf. If you would just pull it off of the shelf and tell us how to craft our colors and our maps and everything, then people will do the things that we want them to do. And it's so funny how often I come here saying, don't forget, it's the excellence of your own science that is such a part of this too. We're really dealing with complex problems, and don't bash yourself over dealing with complicated, hard things. They just are complicated, hard things. And that's hard because it's hard. So anyway, back to my wine.
I think the thing about it is, and and I've been following James for many years, and he says the same thing every once in a while. He'll say the same thing. It's like, as meteorologists, we take it personally when people get killed. There's no doubt about it, and we know when we look at the weather, we know when the storm's coming, we know what's going to happen, and we know what the impact's going to be, and we're doing our best to get the message out. And we turn around, and as James said, 226 people get killed. And it's like, how we've been telling you it's going to happen, and we knew this was going to happen. And everything else. It's very frustrating for me. Still, in 45 years, I'm still frustrated that like a North Carolina situation. Even though we saw the heavy rain coming, we saw that this upslope flow was going to happen. The hurricane was going to upslope too, and we knew this. Asheville was going to get foot of rain. I'm in winter mode, sorry, but a foot of rain or more, in some cases with 30 inches, that you couldn't do enough. With all the science we have today, we couldn't do enough, and it still frustrates me. Today, it still frustrates me, you know, so.
Which is one reason to this day, if I have a minute, I'm going to stop in a Dollar General or a Walmart and talk with people. Because and listen, what we discuss here is critical, and I've learned so much, but you cannot lose touch with the people that you serve. And by hanging out in Dollar Generals and Targets and Walmarts and talking with people, they'll tell you things about what you're doing right and what you're doing wrong. And there is so many different people groups, Kim. That's the thing. We have to serve so many different people groups. It's easy to serve an old man that looks like me, because I understand them. I am one. What about a 22-year-old that doesn't speak English very well? Every life is critical, and I have to be better at all of these people groups. And for me, hanging out in the Dollar General, that's where you learn about them and talk with them, and they'll tell you things.
So James, are you getting any formal training? Are you seeing any formal training out there that helps you understand? Because I've had a life lesson in the last 5 weeks trying to put together, a beautiful, diverse staff of people, young to old, different races, different nationalities. And the biggest challenge is the demographics of age.
Yep.
That's the hardest one. The others fall into place. But age becomes the biggest thing. Are you getting some communication training to help you do that? And Kim, is that something that's out there for us as meteorologists that we could access? Henry, anybody on the panel? James, you start off. Is it out there, or is it just anecdotal like you do in the Dollar Generals?
Well, for me, dipping my toe in TikTok, as crazy as it sounds, you're talking with basically 16 to 24-year-olds. That's the core demo as I see it over there. And, they will engage with you quickly. If you make those videos short and if you make them in a mode that they will listen to and watch. And I look at the comments, and you learn things from them, and they're pretty brutally honest. If I suck, they'll tell you real quick, I suck. This is a horrible video.
Right.
But that to me, that's the way of communicating with younger people. It's on the talk, as crazy as it sounds.
Well, one thing too, I'll tell you, I ran into an amazing guy, and I wanted to pull up my contacts so I would give you the right information. There's a guy here in Austin, which heads up the Center for Generational Kinetics. His name is Jason Dorsey. And I've heard Jason speak. He's been on ABC, Good Morning America, and all the channels. But what he looks at and what he studies are the Gen Zs, the baby boomers, and everyone else. And he's actually discussed with faculty here at the University of Texas before about just have you as professors, how do you interact with students? They're a different generation. And I got to be honest with you, as a faculty member, we make a lot of assumptions and Jason is just so amazing when he tells you about these different groups and how they perceive. And when it comes down to it, James, the tricky part of all this, and Kim too, is the fact that when we're talking about severe weather, we're just talking about how people perceive risk, and what decisions that they will make. And and if they've been through 3 or 4 or 5 tornado warnings in the past and nothing ever happened, I've had people all the time say, "Oh, y'all do that all the time. I don't worry about it all that much." And then the big one hits, and guess what? Their risk assessment or their perception of risk will change greatly. As Kim will tell you, you get a big tornado go through an area, it will change people. But and then we deal with these different generations too.
I have never thought of, so there's a concept in the disaster sciences called disaster subculture, where we talk about there being people who are born in particular places that get acculturated to, the warnings, everything from the warning system to the hazard climatology, like everything in the community evolves to be adapted to whatever you typically face. And I've seen that talked about with their place relationship. I've seen it talked about when you have people move from one place to another place that they're less familiar with, so they are out of their like climatologically based, disaster subculture, and you get like, the Midwesterners who move to Florida, or you get people from Central America who move up to Oklahoma and they're like, what's a tornado? You're out of your sort of disjoint, you're out of your sort of subculture. I've never thought of age group being a kind of disaster subculture, but we might be getting to a point where each generation that's coming up now is so incredibly unique from the last in so many ways, because of the pace of technological change as we're moving through our lives. And I have wondered if there's a piece, even just not even related to age, but just our experience of the outdoors is changing as we're being inside and living in this virtual world so much more. So there's a part of it that's about, the social norms of age. And there's also a part of it that's connected to that, how much you're actually interacting with the real world with age. And I do have concerns that the young generation, as they're driving along with their parents, they're not looking out the window. When they are driving with their friends, they're on their cell phone. When they're home, they're not bored and looking outside or being outside. There's a whole level of disconnect that is going on, and I have no idea. I have absolutely no idea, and I don't know that that's something our field really knows. All of these sort of cascading effects of being part of these different generations now. There's a lot of layers to that. And I think that'd be fascinating to explore, Troy. That is a really fascinating point. It all comes down to the perception of risk. And I can tell you, some of the work I've done in the past has looked at hazard climatology and perception of risk. And I've seen that there's that relationship, that if you're closer to hazards and they've been more recent and stronger, you perceive greater risk from that hazard. If you don't have as much attachment to the place you're living and as much awareness of what's going on around you, I doubt that it's going to work the same way.
Yeah. Well, this goes back. I mean, I tell the story, and I have told it before, and Jen knows this, but in the Corinth, Mississippi tornado of April 19th, 1970, as I was a 7th grader, I just remember that following that tornado for years, Kim, there were 7 people killed. 6 people killed, I think, in the tornado there in Corinth. But I remember for several years after that, into the late 70s and early 80s, that the old emergency management shelter, bomb shelter, basically at City Hall, would fill up on a tornado watch night. After that tornado, people would come and insist on being put in the shelter. They wanted to be there. And that lasted for at least 10 years, Kim, where people there were so horrified what happened in that tornado back in 1970.
So I am not on the talk, but somebody posted James's latest in our Discord server. So I watched that earlier today. And James, I give you so much credit for trying to reach out to the generations and trying to direct them in the right way to listen to somebody credible, because once again, we've got people out there who, yes, it's awesome that we can all grab models now. The data's at our fingertips. Everybody's getting it though, and they're not using it wisely. And so, James, you do a great job at trying to point these kids who are on TikTok to, this guy is making money off of your clicks and your views or whatever. This is not what's going to happen on November 5th. Just by looking at one computer model run. So I like that you try to do that, and you try to reach that generation and try to point them in the right direction.
Right. And I talk with people that use TikTok, and they say the deconstruction videos actually perform very well. And they do, where you take nonsense and you deconstruct it. And I try and do it in a gentle way, but the screaming message is that you need to be able to find a credible source of information. And you can't really do it in a condescending way, because quite frankly, they don't know. All of us here, we understand. We can go to the National Hurricane Center website. We can follow them on whatever. But a lot of these younger people, they don't know that. And they're just going to find some guy on TikTok that's got 10 million views, and they're going to go right to it and believe the guy. And so the deconstruction videos have done pretty well, but we'll see. I mean, it's just, some of that stuff is terrifying on there. James A., what say you about all this?
Yeah, we touched on technological differences a little bit earlier in this conversation, and again, your technological communication potential is directly related to your socioeconomic class. So it always circles back to that. You are at an extreme disadvantage if you are not in a mid to higher level socioeconomic class from these things.
Let's see. Henry, you still with us? I'm trying to see if your bandwidth is still good.
I'm listening.
Okay, good. So we're going to take a quick break. If you can stay with us for a short while longer here, Henry, we're going to hear from Tony Rice. We have Jen in This Week in Tornado History. We're going to come back with the email of the week. We'll do picks of the week and much more as WeatherBrains rolls along.
Looking beyond the atmosphere, here's Tony Rice with your astronomy outlook.
You may have heard about a Halloween comet, yet another one bright enough to be seen with the naked eye. Yeah, about that. Comet C 2024 S1 Atlas was discovered 4 weeks ago by a University of Hawaii telescope. It's part of an ominous-sounding but very necessary Asteroid Terrestrial Impact Last Alert System, or ATLAS. The comet created initial interest amongst astronomers as it brightened. There's hopes that it might become the second naked-eye visible comet of the year, conveniently timed in late October, around the time of the new moon, providing for better viewing, and also around Halloween, when people have another good reason to be outside after sundown. Those hopes were dashed this morning, though, as NASA's Solar and Heliophysics Observatory, or SOHO, watched the comet disappear as it flew near the sun. Comet S1 had even played its Halloween role perfectly last week, as its comma, or the atmosphere created around the comet's nucleus, detached from the tail, making it a headless comet. But that's not a good thing. It's indication that the comet is breaking up. This happens when comets draw closer to the sun. Gas and dust is ejected, and that can cause instability, even causing it to spin, further breaking it apart. The other comet in our sky, C 2023 A3 Trichinsun, it's still there, and it's visible to long exposure photography, but is too far away now to be visible to the naked eye. That's your astronomy outlook. Follow me at RTP Hokie for more spacey stuff like this.
This week in tornado history, 16 tornadoes were confirmed on November 3rd, 1992, all but one in the state of Louisiana. The strongest for the day is the topic of a narrative on tornadotalk.com. It was an F3 that traveled 7 miles through parts of Bienville Parish. The town of Arcadia, population 3,400 at the time, was the hardest hit. Per storm data, the tornado developed 6 miles west of Bryceland. It had an intermittent path through open country before striking Arcadia. It lifted 1.5 miles to the northeast of town. 12 homes and 2 businesses were destroyed. 75 other homes had moderate to severe damage. There were no fatalities. No injuries are in the official record, but newspaper accounts say differently. The steeple of the First Baptist Church fell onto the vehicle of Police Jury President Bill Sims. Debris also fell onto another car, and a woman and 2 kids were in that car. All were injured. Here's an account from the Times of Shreveport, Louisiana from November 5th, 1992. Police jury president Bill Sims said it was not the tornado, but the hug of a 9-year-old boy that touched him most. Winds strong enough to pick up the rear of Sims's truck toppled the First Baptist Church steeple onto his vehicle. It then bounced onto a car occupied by a Minden woman, a boy, and an 11-year-old girl. The terrified boy scrambled out of one of the car's shattered windows and into Sims's arms. Quote, "I told him I would be back in an hour. I had my family to check on too," Sims said. When Sims returned, the boy ran and hugged Sims's legs and asked if he was all right. Quote, "I said, yeah." He said, "I'm glad." Sims said, "That made my day. I was lucky. We all were lucky."
Oh, yes. It is time now to dive into the email inbox and see if something's in there.
We do. We have our email of the week, and this comes in from John Huntington. Thanks so much for the great program this week on Asheville. My sister lives there, and I went to visit her back in the middle of the month. And he sent us a couple of links here with some photos from that area and continued. The hose up on the creek is how she was getting water for toilets, carrying some buckets up every day. A couple of the slabs that were seen in the pictures, people were actually skateboarding on slabs, are some of the buildings that were wiped away as discussed in the episode. She had a storage unit on the second floor of the U-Haul facility down by the river. Even a weather geek and storm chaser looking at that spot in advance, I would never have imagined that the river would possibly get up to where it got. The roof line of a 2-story building. You can see the water line in the photos of the front of the building. The volume of water from that storm event was simply incomprehensible. She had my father's World War II scrapbooks and my mom's wedding dress in there, and it's all ruined. It was all in plastic bins, but the water picked up everything inside the storage unit and dumped it out and covered everything in mud. Ironically, she was with me at my father's memorial service up in Maryland. He lived to be 101 during the worst of the flooding. So that just got to me. Here, they're having the memorial service while this is happening with the flooding. I suggested she just treat it as a poetic ending point and walk away from the ruined stuff in the unit and let them bulldoze it all along with the building. I lived in New York City through 9/11, to blackouts, Sandy, and COVID. And in my experience, everyone pulls together in times like this. This is what she's been experiencing in Asheville, and pulling together seems to be a universal human community attribute, despite how crazy the world feels these days. Thank you for all your great work. John, thank you for sharing your story. And we're very, very glad that your mom's okay. And I don't know what you guys, but that just really hit home. And I just wonder how many other stories are like that from that event. It's just so awful.
Just incredible. Again, the human aspect of these stories, it often takes weeks and sometimes months and sometimes years for them to come out. And that's why we love what you do, Jen, is that you dig into the human aspect of high impact weather events, not just ones in the last few years, but decades ago. So thanks for all your work. So let's we've already really done our weather roundup here. I guess we've not talked about the tropics. Let's bring in Henry here. Neil Jacobs is not here tonight. So Henry, can we stick a fork in the hurricane season? Is it done, or will this orange 40% blob do something in the Caribbean? What do you think?
Well, the MJO is saying yes, it's coming, so, but I don't think it's a threat to the United States. I think something's going to develop, probably be a Haiti situation or Puerto Rico situation, Bahamas, then probably heads out to sea. So, but the MJO is coming around to say, yeah, we're going to get one more last one in there before we switch this pattern around, and everybody that's been dry will start getting some rains and everything else. So got to wait to about mid-month. Then hurricane season's done. Switch the pattern, and we're off to the races. If you like snow in the Northeast, get ready. It's coming.
But wait a minute. I saw on TikTok that this is going to be a Category 6 hurricane that's going to devastate Florida. So I'm just sorry. If only you could. If only what you need. Everybody should spend a little time on the talk and just search hurricane update.
I don't want to. It'll frustrate. I'll be aggravated. I'm already aggravated by what I heard so far about this hurricane or this tropical system coming. It was
What I do before I get on the talk, I wrap duct tape around my head so that it doesn't explode. And it's but again, that's where young people are, and in order to serve them, you have to have a relationship with them, and you can't develop a relationship in 24 hours. It takes time, and I want them to know who I am, where they can find my products and services, and I'd like to think that I'm a credible source, and I'm here if you need me, and this is how you can find me. And so that's why I dabble in the talk. But anyway, let's kind of shift over into picks of the week, Henry. So we're going to stall and give you a little bit of time here to come up with something good, but this can be a website, data source, book, hardware, software, anything weather related. And we're all going to go around the horn and share our pick of the week. And mine is the obvious choice, I guess. NOAA, the Weather Service, came out with their debunking article. I guess everybody saw that last week, right?
Yep.
And of course, I threw it out there, and immediately you're just brutally attacked. But I thought it was well written, and I don't know, Commissioner, do you know who was behind that? Where did that order come from to write that piece? I thought it was well written.
Yeah, apparently it was the NOAA comms, like headquarters NOAA. So I don't think it was Weather Service in particular. I think it was higher order that they decided to look at. When you read it, it really focuses on NOAA programs and NOAA's participation in different things. And it clarifies that things like cloud seeding do happen. We don't do it, but it does happen. We are required to report when these things are happening. It clarifies our statutory requirements and so on. So I thought that it was very well done also.
Yeah,
I read it.
And again,
I thought it was a good article too. I read it too. It's a good article.
Claim fact, claim fact, claim fact, and I thought it was honest, well written, and of course, for some people, they're incapable of thinking for themselves, and they again, I can't wait for Kim to figure this one out. Something we talked about this a few weeks ago, but something has changed. Something is different, whether it's foreign actors, whether it's the political polarization in the country. I don't know, but it's radically different. And I'm going to have to learn how to maneuver through this as we go through our tornado season. And, there's some hope that a lot of this stuff is going to go away after the election. I'm not optimistic. I honestly don't think it is going to go away. The people that believe, there's a lot of people that genuinely think that James Adelot has a joystick, and out there from Tulsa, he's guiding these hurricanes in with his joystick, and he's controlling the intensity. And of course, I will say now, you guys know what you know what I've got here. All right. I mean, yeah, this is great. I mean, I got so many good things here, and of course, I've got the SC Eta Aux, and most people don't know what that is. I think James, you sent this to me. I've got all these switches in my office here, but the chemtrail thing that was given to me by Chrissy Hurley at the Weather Service in Nashville. But you have a subset of the population. They're going to believe this, and they're just going to believe it. That they cannot have they just can't change their mind on this. And so I'm just trying to reach out to people that and then again, listen, you can look at this stuff. That's fine. I respect people with a different opinion, but I just thought that was well written. So anyway, I made that NOAA piece my pick of the week. All right, Jen, let's go up to Syracuse, where it's in the 40s. What you got for us this week?
So as I was planning my trip, which it takes a long time to do, to plot all the tornadoes. You're going to these counties where, who do you need to talk to? Who do you need to visit? And so when I found out I had a day and I decided to go to Niagara Falls, I thought, you know what, I'm just going to put it out into the Discord server in our Patreon room and say, hey, anybody ever been to Niagara Falls? What should I do? And of course, the first comment, you should go down the falls in a barrel. And I'm like, yeah. So I decided to search, when was the first barrel ride down Niagara Falls. And the anniversary just actually passed. It was October 24th, 1901. A 63-year-old school teacher named Anna Edson Taylor becomes the first person to successfully take the plunge over Niagara Falls in a barrel. And the reason she did it, she was strapped for cash and seeking fame. So, now it's TikTok. And then it was going down, and I'm not desperate enough to go try to make some money going over it's illegal. So I would get arrested quickly here. But there have been several attempts and there have also been several failures. But this is a very interesting, quick article on the history of going over Niagara Falls in a barrel.
James, the comments in the chat, they're gold here. Wasn't it a drunk frat guy? Hey, hold my beer and watch this. Wow.
Oh,
all right. And again, all the pics will be up in the website, weatherbrains.com. All right, James, let's bring you in. I know you got something good.
Oh, this is kind of weird, but Gesman Tamag, and I know I messed that name up, is a mountain guide in Nepal. And he put a 360 selfie stick version shot of on top of Mount Everest on his last trip up there. So literally the top of the world.
wow.
And man, it just gives me shivers and all the scary things. Ooh.
Ooh, wow.
But it's really cool.
All right. Troy, give us a good pick of the week.
I would never, ever want to pretend that I could take Jen's job of looking at the mail or email or anything else, but I actually got snail mail from our WeatherBrain viewer, Tom Webb. He's kind of gotten hooked into the weather forecast stones or things like that are out there. And he actually got that in the mail today from Tom. He sent that, but he also sent us a link, which I think is a real interesting website. It's Julie Godsar up in private sector Met, also at Wyoming DOT. Talked about the Wyoming high winds and understanding them and how they blow against the interstates, blow more perpendicular, and how that creates a lot of problems at Wyoming. I think it's a real interesting site. Thank you, Tom, for the mail as well as the email. And then wanted to give a plug to the Capital Weather Gang, Washington Post and Dan Stillman, that a couple of days ago is AI transforming the weather forecasting. Are we getting behind here in the U.S.? So that was an article, and I have the link for that as well online.
Now we got to get Jason on the show here. We'll get our guest booking officer.
The really good guy, Jason Dorsey, and I will work on that. Jason, he kind of owes me, so I'll see what he'll come on here, and then he'll never talk to me again.
There you go. All right, Kim, give us a pick of the week.
Yeah, my pick of the week is advertising for the International Association of Emergency Managers conference that's coming up in a couple weeks. And Weather Service is going to be hosting a fire weather tabletop exercise. So I know we have a lot of emergency managers who listen to this show. And if you are going to IAEM, we really strongly encourage you to come and join us at that session. We're really excited to learn more about what's going on the ground with our emergency management partners in fire, and also to share some of our cutting edge resources for fire weather.
Excellent. All right, Henry, we have stalled long enough. I know you've got something amazingly good, so go.
Well, I've been following the Siberian snow cover and what's going on up there right now with the Siberian snow cover and what they've been talking about, how that's going to play in for the winter. In fact, Mark Vogan, which I think some of you might know Mark Vogan, weather, he wrote this fabulous blog about the winter forecast, but went through every single indice out there between the MJO, the PDO, the QBO, the AMO, everything. He went through and looked at everything and tried to sum up what all these patterns are doing right now in the atmosphere in terms of what's going to happen this winter. So if you want to read something really fascinating, it was a very well done article that he wrote on Mark Vogan's weather about the winter forecast and how all these things with the La Nina and supposed to be coming on and all this stuff going on right now and how it's all going to influence the whole winter forecast across the country. So interesting reading, I love reading
So
other people's stuff.
I don't want to spoil the reading here, but how is the Siberian snow cover?
It was getting more. It was actually extending, and so there's theories that if the Siberian snow cover this early in the year continues to expand, it'll lead to more Arctic air masses trying to come into the country, at least into the plains and Great Lakes areas, and more
Yeah,
cold.
JB Elliott, he was always focused on that. Our
Yeah.
old colleague here. That's one of the things he always watched greatly. So, all right. So, Henry, plug anything you need to plug right here. Anything. This is your plug-orama. Go.
Plug for myself.
Yeah.
There you
Yeah.
go.
So look, if you websites, services, social media, anything you need to plug, go.
Well, I'm on social media under weathermadness.com, and if you're interested in going to a weather website, it's weathermadness.com. We have a pro site, a subscription website, and if you're interested in getting custom weather forecasts, I do weather forecasts for the Pentagon, Reagan Airport, Dulles Airport, Denver. Chicago may be coming up this year, and so I do a lot of forecasts for the snowplow operations around these major airports. So, if you're a snowplower out there and you want to get weather information, one of the things I do this year, which been doing, I started last year, based off of climate change and how these snowstorms are getting wetter and heavier, is I'm forecasting the actual weight of snow to help snowplow operators really understand what is their gas usage going to be, and really how much work they have to do to plow these humongous parking lots of snow, and how much these, like, the melters are going to take for the snow. So it's a new service I'm providing in terms of forecasting the actual weight of snow, and it also helps with some of these companies have the big warehouses, and that weight of snow on top of the roofs, and how that can be an insurance problem for them too, if they collapse. So we're doing a
Sure.
lot of that
Lots.
now, because a lot of snowstorms up here in the Northeast are a lot heavier and wetter now, and they're not the old days of the nor'easterns that we used to have.
Yeah, heavy wet snow can be a monstrous problem if there's enough of it.
Oh yeah,
So
for the small snowplow operator, it's a lot of money. It's a lot more money now to fight that snowstorm, because you have to push a heavy wet snowstorm with a Ford F-150 or some of these trucks are using. You're using a tremendous amount of gas, and diesel prices are really high right now, and so they're spending a lot of money, and they're still based off, a lot of the contracts are old contracts they're still basing off of, and so they're not making a lot of money, nowadays. So they need to have
right.
that extra
Yeah,
knowledge of how much, what am I actually fighting nowadays. So.
indeed. Hey, James Adelot, introduce your friend before we go here. We saw a special guest walk through your shot.
Yeah, that was Skipper. She's the latest addition to the family, and she won't come back. Well, maybe she will. Come here, come here, come here. Come see. Oh, if I can pick her up. Oh,
Oh, yeah.
there she is.
Hey.
So
Wow.
we
Yeah.
could not get the kids to agree on a name, so I told them if they didn't agree on a name, I would pick one they both hated. So they agreed on Skipper.
Wow.
Oh.
You need to go back and watch this video. We're getting a total face lick here from that's outstanding. And Troy, so I know who Jason Dorsey is now. You sent the link in here, and
Yeah.
he spoke at a
Yeah.
health conference. My everybody needs a hobby, and doesn't make a lot of sense, but some of you know, for 19 years, I have served as the chairman of the board of a large hospital. He came in and
Yep.
did a session with the ALAHA, which is the Alabama Hospital Association, about what we've been talking about here.
Yep.
And he was outstanding. It was just
No.
excellent.
Well, the one thing about Jason, I'll tell a story about him. First time I met him, he came in to talk to faculty in our college, and we had lunch one day, and he's very animated, just a wonderful speaker. And he said, "How many of you faculty members have ever seen something happen during an exam, like a student pull a phone out, and all of a sudden they're using a phone, and you're shaking your head, going, 'What are they thinking?'" And everybody in the room, of course, older faculty people say, "Absolutely, we've seen that happen before." And he said, have you ever told them not to do that in advance? Because they're so used to using phones nowadays that they probably are not doing anything that would compromise the exam. They're just so used to having the phone. You've got to tell them, because that's a different generation. And that's the one thing I remember that Jason told us. But it's just really amazing when he goes through and begins to tell you about all these generations and then basically works up to the current time. And it's really interesting.
Yeah, and I think that the knowledge he could give us is very applicable. I learned a lot. And of course, one of the things that we struggle with, it's retention. There's a critical nursing shortage, and these nurses get out of nursing schools, and it's not good or bad. It's just different. Every culture is different.
Right.
Every generation is different, and they need a different type of feedback. They need a different type of everything's a little different. But anyway, I think that would be a really good guest here. But having said that, we got to wrap this one up. If you are new here, WeatherBrains is typically on the air Monday nights at 7 o'clock Central, 8 o'clock Eastern. And you can watch this live on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/WeatherBrains. But most of you listen to the audio version. However you consume this, we thank you. And if you want to get in touch with us, the email address, it is email@weatherbrains.com. So on behalf of the entire WeatherBrains crew, I'm James Spann. Thanks a lot for listening. Have a marvelous week, and God bless. Thanks, Henry. It was a great show.
Thanks,
Thank
Henry.
you.
That was awesome.
Yeah, it's good. I've seen the show many times, and I said they should have me on.
Yeah, no, you are now in the loop. You're in the circle of trust, the WeatherBrains circle of trust.